All right. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Ian Scott, President and CEO of the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce. And this is a informational session in response to the request for proposals submitted by the Military Enhancement Committee, or MEC, of Beaufort County. We're going to do three things on our call today. Number one, I'll just do a real quick recap of the RFP as it was sent out. Number two, I'm going to respond verbally to the questions submitted in writing. Thanks to many of you on the call and others who submitted some fantastic questions. We've weeded those out and combined them and have some responses. We'll do those line by line. And then third, we'll open it up for any additional questions that you all might have that I can respond to help as you consider your proposals to us. First, I want to thank you all again for your interest in this project. We're really encouraged by the number and variety and experience level of the firms who've responded so far. And we're certainly hopeful that we'll get some terrific responses to be able to evaluate. Very quickly, first, the MEC, Military Enhancement Committee of Beaufort County, is a public-private entity housed within the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce, but its 9 voting members are appointed by 5 different bodies, including Beaufort County, City of Beaufort, Town of Port Royal, the South Carolina Military Base Task Force, and the Greater Island Committee based on Hilton Head Island. So this is very much a regional effort and a public-private effort. The MEC has been in existence for more than 20 years, or going on 20 years. 2003 is when it was founded. It grows out of efforts to secure the military installations in the Beaufort region against BRAC. Its charge is really to lay the defense for our military installations in the region. There are 3 that we focus on. That's Marine Corps Recruit Depot Parris Island, Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort, and Naval Hospital Beaufort. And again, laying a framework to defend those bases against any threats, including BRAC, is our chief objective. The MEC has a long history of activity and has had professional contracts in the past with consultants and lobbyists, and has done quite good work throughout its history, including helping support the recruitment of the F-35 program to Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort, and working on other base expansion projects locally. We've been involved in supported efforts by the county to protect land, critical lands around the air station, and worked with other governing bodies on advancing military-friendly legislation and policy, particularly in conjunction with the State Military Base Task Force. We're not starting from zero. We have a pretty solid track record. We also have a very good understanding of the core issues happening on the installations. We have recently retired service members who serve on the MEC and who are close in our orbit, and have a good information pipeline about what's happening on the installations. Situation analysis that was shared with all of you. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at some of the headlines that have come out over the past 9 months since last September. It really kicked off during the election cycle for the 1st Congressional District, but there was quite a few headlines about the future of Parris Island, questioning the viability of the installation, or at least raising some of the challenges to the installation. Those have continued quite a bit, at least on a monthly basis, in local press and occasionally in defense-specific related press like the Marine Corps Times or the Military Times. Addressing those proactively with a clear, fact-based, and positive narrative about all the contributions our 3 installations are making to to national defense is really the point of this RFP. We have written this RFP as a request for support on communications, strategic communication services. We understand that that falls into a broader framework of tasks necessary to accomplish our mission. We believe we've got some very, very solid relationships with our elected officials and on the installations. We believe we have good intel and information flow with key stakeholders. We believe we're fairly well positioned on a lot of fronts, thanks in no small part to the work of the members of the MEC and to some of the consultants we've worked with in the past. But where we believe we're currently most deficient is in our ability to consistently and clearly communicate that proactive vision. That's the piece we believe we need to address most ardently. We don't think this exists outside of a comprehensive strategy. We think this needs to be married with our strategy. But right now, we have only a web page on the Chamber's website. We have no dedicated other external web presence for the MEC. We have no active social media presence for the MEC. And we don't have a plug and play ability to issue statements of fact, to respond to any public questions raised in the media. We simply don't have the muscle memory on those kinds of communications responses. And that's really what we're looking for, an outside consultant to come help us build, drawing from the expertise that we have existing around the table with the MEC and our stakeholders, but to develop that messaging and to present a coherent and sustainable way to present that to the community at large, and to motivate our key decision makers, namely those elected officials at the State House in Columbia, and in Congress and in the Pentagon. So that's the baseline there. We have envisioned this project in 3 phases. One, a communications planning, kind of comprehensive plan development phase, a plan implementation phase, basically where we would envision the core pieces of communications collateral getting developed, expecting a website here, a social media strategy, likely some baseline messaging to be used as needed in communication with the press, a media strategy, and then a 3rd phase, kind of an ongoing management phase. We're trying to leave the RFP somewhat flexible so that we could consider both bids to do work on individual pieces of this, or a firm that might be able to provide a comprehensive soup to nuts approach and integrate our coherent strategy there. We are asking for submissions by Friday, July 30th, and we're trying to move on an expedited timeline to select a firm and begin work. We are eager to get our message out there more readily in the community and to help respond to some amount of anxiety among the general public here, who are frankly very, very tied to the business community here, very tied to the military installations for their continued success and the vibrancy of this community. I'm going to pivot to the questions that were submitted in advance. We got a number. I've broken them up into categories, and I'll run down the list. This will take just a minute, but I will invite your questions after I get through running down our initial responses there. First, a couple of questions surrounding communications and media. Would the requested enhanced web and social media presence be integrated into existing digital communications or be a separate effort? And we are looking, we believe that our existing digital communications platform from the MEC is minimal. We are looking for a completely new digital communications platform. So we're looking for all new collateral. We don't see much of our existing We have some existing knowledge base that can be integrated, but we're looking for new materials. Would the current MEC web and social media metrics be available for contract execution? There really is no baseline. We have no current social media presence and only a very minimal web presence, as I've described. So any existing metrics that we have are largely inconsequential. We are looking for a recommendation of the key metrics based on best practice that we ought to evaluate and try to set some benchmarks from there. In terms of target media, we had a question about the media, whether we have a target list or we would be looking for help creating a target list. I think it's the latter. We would look for our service provider here to provide or at least help us develop a comprehensive media strategy that includes a list of target media. Our local newspaper is the Island Packet, out of Hilton Head, the Post and Courier out of Charleston, and the State newspaper out of Columbia also routinely cover our installations. But we're also looking for some of those national outlets that cover military issues, and there are probably some additional national media outlets that could be targets for us as well. We are looking for help to develop that strategy. Access to a wire service was one of the questions for issuing press releases. We do not currently have a subscription or an access to a wire service. Obviously willing to consider that. Well, a question about details on the enhanced web and social media presence, what that should entail. Truly, we are looking for a provider to identify industry best practice, community best practice, help us benchmark and set the bar appropriately for what our baseline of consistent communication ought to be. A number of questions surrounding our budget, and everybody was looking for a tactful way to ask how much money we got. So we have not fixed a budget for this project. However, we do believe we have more than adequate funds on hand to cover a reasonable project expenses for this project. We anticipate receiving an array of different proposals. We're expecting that we might see some that would recommend a set fee for a set of deliverables. We expect that others are going to propose a monthly rate over a given period of time. We are open to a variety of approaches, which is part of the reason we haven't fixed a firm budget. In short, we are looking for the best combination of proven experience and value as we look for a firm to help us here. We're not just looking for the lowest bidder. We're looking for who can give us the best combination of demonstrated expertise and experience and some of the outcomes we're looking for in terms of collateral. Some questions all related to project context, and I'll try to go through these fairly quickly. The question was, this is a communications plan to address potential closure or realignment. Is that correct? And is BRAC a component of this project? It is correct. However, we do expect the tone of our foundational communications platform to be proactive and not reactive, if that makes sense. We don't want this we believe our responsibility is to highlight all of the key attributes and contributions to national defense of our military installations, their successes, their strategic advantages. We think we need to do a better job of helping tell that story to our community locally and to key stakeholders. And that's not just a defensive messaging, that's an offensive, proactive messaging stance. A question about additional information resources, information on national decision makers on base alignment. We were talking here about members of Congress and Pentagon leadership. We do hope that leadership in DC is able to see the work being done more visibly by the MEC as a result of this project. Will representatives from each of the military installations be involved? So there are no active duty service members on the MEC, nor will any active duty service members be directly involved in the evaluation of proposals or in the execution of this project. That said, it is entirely possible that we'll have dialogue with active duty members at the local installations throughout the course of this project. Certainly in information gathering, that would be an expectation. We had a question about the MEC, how often it convenes. Generally, the MEC convenes monthly, but our meeting frequency has varied somewhat based on calendar scheduling and other pressing issues and decisions. So we've occasionally gathered more frequently, and occasionally we've taken a month off. I think the members of the MEC are prepared to put together a meeting schedule that meets the needs of this project based on the selected vendor of the project and the scope of the work that's outlined. Has Beaufort sponsored a joint land use or compatibility study, a JLUS study, and can you share it? Yes, there are existing JLUS studies, one for MCAS Beaufort or the Air Station, and one for Paris Island. They both date from 2015. They are both available for download at the Low Country Council of Governments. I will share separately via email to everybody the link to download both those sizable PDF reports, but they are there, they are available. And there actually has been some quite significant land preservation goals that have already been accomplished in protection of the airspace and the area around Paris Island. Under the situation analysis, we referenced an ongoing resiliency study. There's a question about that and what the status was and could we share more. That is a Military Installation Resilience Review, MIRR for those who love acronyms. It is also being managed by the Low Country Council of Governments. They are in their initial stakeholder input phase with a timeline envisioning completion during the first quarter of 2022. So we're looking at a February-March timeframe for that work to be wrapped up. The MEC has been involved in initial input for that. There's still quite a long way to go. Pivoting now to questions related to the selection process. We had a question about how many firms have been solicited. We circulated this directly to 18 different firms. Those include local, national, and some with a discrete military focus. We're casting the net pretty widely here because we do believe we need a kind of an array of expertise. We'd like to see a couple of creative options. We also have posted this with several other organizations, including the Association of Defense Communities, and we believe we've gotten reach beyond the initial 18 we circulated. We had a question about proposals to the committee. Can we present in person? We do have a RFP review committee established, a subcommittee of the MEC, and they have reserved the right to conduct interviews with finalists. Depending on the number of applications that we get, we would envision winnowing this down to a handful of finalists and then potentially conducting in-person interviews, either in person or via Zoom. We had other questions about in-person versus virtual. Once awarded, will meetings be expected to happen in person in the region or virtual? So we're open to both here. We're open to in-person and virtual. Really, we're looking for a balance to achieve optimal effectiveness and efficiency. So the physical location of the project team is probably going to have some bearing here on what is a good balance. I would expect that anybody working here will have to come visit at some point, depending on where you're located. More or less follow-up may be done virtually or in person. We had questions about the evaluation criteria. We've outlined for ourselves 6 key metrics we're looking at. Number 1, qualifications and experience with similar kinds of projects or clients. Number 2, the key staff involved who would actually be working on the project, their backgrounds and professional qualifications. Number 3, the nature, quality, and customer satisfaction of previously completed projects. So we are looking to see some examples of prior work that we can evaluate. Number 4, the firm's demonstrated capacity to problem solve and bring some creativity. Again, that's kind of looking backwards at demonstrated results and some of the ideas you present in the proposal. Number 5, those metrics. We've spent some time talking about that on this call. We're looking for somebody who can help us be more metric driven in our reporting. we would like to be able to lay down a baseline and be able to evaluate progress. We need some help to get that baseline laid down. And then number 6, identifying the key challenges faced by the MEC. So in your application, your ability to, or in the proposal, your ability to help us cut through and reach those key stakeholders. That's what we're looking for. And then kind of how we'll evaluate a firm's, we had a question about how we'd evaluate the firm we do select. You know, that's overall quality of work product. We are looking for some timeliness here. You know, we're eager to get moving. So our ability to go quickly and get through a planning phase and into an implementation phase. We want to see those metrics early on so that we can use those going forward to identify our progress, our reach, and our engagement with key audiences. So I'd say those are kind of the big ones. Overall quality of work, caliber of work, timeliness, and then metrics to be defined. Then finally, a number of questions that are really more granular in nature about the proposal. There was a question about the preferred format for bios. We do not need a 4-page CV for everybody. Professional bios with bulleted lists and credentials are adequate. Are security clearances needed? We do not believe that they are, so no. Is there any requirement for on-site staffing? No, we would hope that anybody selected for the project would be able to at least visit the region to help understand what's going on here. Expected period of performance, this kind of gets back to that question of how we're structuring this. We'd like to move through those first 2 phases, planning and implementation, as quickly as possible. The ongoing management phase, obviously that would be ongoing. So, you know, I think we need a little bit of a reality check from the vendor we're working with on what's a realistic time frame. We're likely to be pushing on that reality check to move as expeditiously as possible, gathering input and getting a plan together and up. We're eager to have that done. Long-term time horizon, I think that was basically covered in my response above. Statement of intent. I think there was some lack of clarity about what we meant by a statement of intent as a component of the application. We're simply looking for a narrative explanation of the services you intend to provide and the basic terms that you propose to provide those services. That's what we mean by a statement of intent. You're responding to the RFP and what you plan to do and how you'd like to be structured, how you'd like the agreement to be structured. Just a baseline for us to evaluate. The RFP mentions the MEC worked through an internal process to outline a work plan. Can that be made available? A couple of people want to see that. We're happy to share that with any of the finalist firms. We do have a working document outlining our different areas of focus and how we're organizing. But again, our first goal was to lay down a comprehensive communication strategy because we don't have that. And then finally, in the description section of our RFP, we asked for a sample contract. Are you looking for us to provide one? The short answer to that is yes. If you have a boilerplate contract or a baseline agreement document that you've used for similar projects, we would greatly appreciate you sharing with us that as part of your proposal, so that we could consider that as we evaluate firms. That wraps all the questions that were submitted in advance. We're at a half an hour. We've got time for questions. I would welcome those from any on the call. If you have questions, please unmute yourself or send me a chat if you prefer to do it that way. Heather.
Thank you. Are you currently working with a lobbyist? And if so, would the lobbyist be reviewing the materials as well to kind of be looking and fleshing through everything?
We do not have an active contract with a lobbyist at this time. Okay. So it'll be the members of the MEC exclusively reviewing the proposal and any stakeholders they choose to engage.
As for the work that this communication contractor would be doing, with whom or how would they tie into the MEC? Is there a designated communications lead there, or is there somebody that would be running this project, or is it, will things be reviewed by the group?
We're likely to have a subcommittee of the MEC that will be the lead on implementation of this project. You're likely to also have a fairly high degree of engagement from me on some day-to-day. The MEC is an all-volunteer body. We have a number of folks on the MEC who contribute a significant number of hours in their volunteer role and who are quite accessible. But in terms of paid staff, full-time focused on this, that would likely be me. Other questions? Well, I hope we've presented an enticing project. This is a terrific community that has a really, really deep connection to the armed services, in particular to the Marine Corps. Everybody in Beaufort, Port Royal is neighbors with, friends with, colleagues with either active duty, veteran, or retiree. Most of those most of those serve in the Marine Corps. Organizations around this region have military spouses as key parts of the workforce. There is a deep, deep military ethos here. And in some ways, that the richness and deepness of that tradition is part of the reason we may have taken some of this communications piece for granted in the past, because it's such a known given quantity here. So I'm getting past a couple of notes. My point about that being, we have a really solid foundation to work from. We just need to get we believe we have a very, very good story to tell. This is the short part, a very good story to tell. We need your help to get that message out more widely and to motivate more of our elected officials who are doing great work on our behalf. We have some incredibly military friendly, plugged in and engaged elected officials representing this area, both at the State House and in DC. Motivating them is not really the problem. It's arming them with all the talking points and motivating the electorate that sends them to office to do the work on behalf of our installations here. That's the goal. And also to help our region feel confident and position itself for expansions of mission. That's ultimately what we'd like to be able to do, and move off of a defensive footing and into an offensive, proactive footing. So that's what we're looking for your help to do, and integrate that into a more comprehensive strategy. We believe we're doing some very good work, and the positioning of the bases, I think, reflects a strength. We just need to communicate that strength more broadly.
So,
any final questions? Heather, go ahead.
yeah, so kind of wrapping around back to my question, and I think where Mirth was going as well, is so the official spokesperson then on behalf of this entire project then is you.
I think the spokesperson for the MEC is likely to be the chairman of the MEC.
Okay.
Or other committee members from the MEC.
Okay.
The person working day to day in the trenches with our selected vendor is likely to be a combination of a couple members of the MEC and me.
Okay.
So there will be work directly with the volunteer members of the MEC. The MEC is the sponsoring entity for this project, but the MEC has the full support of the Beaufort Regional Chamber, and among our staff, I'll be the lead.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. So staff, and then front facing, public facing is MEC oriented. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you for helping me make that distinction. Yes. Okay, other questions? Well, listen, again, we think this should be a lot of fun. We think we have a great story to tell. We don't believe we're in a crisis mode. We think we're in an opportunity mode, and we're looking for the right partner to help us seize this opportunity. And we're very eager to see the creative approaches you all suggest in your bids. We're very hopeful to get a number to read and review, and we look forward to engaging in a two-way dialogue once we have those initial starting documents for the review committee to dig into. So thank you all very much. We'll end the call there. If you have anything else offline, please shoot me an email. We are trying to keep as much clarity and process and transparency in our communication as possible, which is the reason for today's call. We will circulate a recording of this call to everybody who's been involved to date. Thank you all so much.